Serving another person is not just about the act itself. It's about the way we serve each other. Now, when we help or serve others, are we doing it with a heart at peace, trying to be helpful, or are we serving with a heart at war, grudging and blaming each other while we're in the act of doing something that otherwise would be kind? The difference between these two heart sets can make a huge difference in our experience working with each other. Let's take a closer look at the way we serve each other. Now, just like there's two ways of seeing people, like we talked about in the last video, there are two ways of serving people. Now, we can serve with a heart at peace, or we could serve with a heart at war. Now, serving with a heart at peace means we're serving with an intent to be helpful. We're genuinely caring, and we want to make a positive impact, and we want to be helpful to them. But we can do the same act of service in a different way, with a blaming heart or a heart at war. So let me give you an example of what I mean. So I'm not super proud of this, but I'm going to share with you. I think it illustrates the point that one night, after a super long day of work, I started cleaning up, started doing the dishes, and started helping out. And I got home at like 8 o'clock. Family had already had dinner, and the dishes were in the sink. And I first went to go help, and my intention was actually to just jump in and help out whatever was needed. And I felt good about it. I felt like it was good. And I started doing the dishes, and then all of a sudden I noticed that the oatmeal was on there from earlier this morning. And I'm like, couldn't they just have rinsed the oatmeal? And it took me like 5 minutes just to get the oatmeal off of one dish. And I started getting frustrated as I'm looking. I'm like, man, like they must not respect me. That they like my wife and my family, they left the dishes for me to do rather than like doing it for me, because maybe I had a super long day. And so I started blaming my wife and my kids. And I started justifying myself of like, well, I'm such a hard worker. And so all of a sudden, the service that I first was there to just help out, the same service shifted into frustration. And it shifted, my heart shifted into war, where war is when you're blaming another person, justifying yourself, and it just creates this situation. And my actions started showing my frustration as I was banging dishes around, trying to make sure everybody knew that I was doing the dishes and that I was not super happy about it. And what started as a peaceful act of service turned into war. And my family definitely noticed that I was doing the dishes, but not in a good way. Well, I realized something super important that day. The dishes, they got done, but they got done in two very different ways. First, literally just with my heart trying to help, and then shifted into blaming and frustration and war, a warring heart, while I was in the middle of this act of doing the dishes for my family. While I was in the act of the service, those dishes got done in two very different ways. Now, I know this is just a silly example, which you might be able to relate with in your personal life and even your professional life. Now, this story isn't just about dishes. It's a metaphor for how we interact with each other every day. And this experience taught me a super valuable lesson about serving with a heart at peace versus serving with a heart at war. Now, serving another person is not just about the act itself. It's about the way we serve each other. Now, when we help or serve others, are we doing it with a heart at peace, trying to be helpful, or are we serving with a heart at war, grudging and blaming each other while we're in the act of doing something that otherwise would be kind? The difference between these two heart sets can make a huge difference in our experience working with each other. How do we serve the people around us? Do we serve them with a heart to legit be helpful because we care? Or do we do that same act of service with a heart at war, blaming, justifying ourselves, being frustrated? And what's the difference? We are intuitive beings. We can tell. We can tell when somebody is serving us with jabbing us, and we can feel that. Now, I challenge you to practice serving with a heart at peace.